Thank you for joining FCSUA's October informational webinar, Making the Connection with Businesses to Get Students Hired. My name is Iris Neal. I am the Program Manager and Outreach Coordinator at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. Please welcome our employer panelists. Emily Johnson Truitt is General Manager at the Spring Hill Suite, Tallahassee North. Dr. Jason Kurtz is the principal of Hector A. Cafferata Junior Elementary School in Lee County School District. Debbie Savage is a supervisor of retail staffing for Florida Public Supermarkets Incorporated. At this time, we will begin our webinar. So the first question for our panelists, and you guys can each see each other, correct? You can see each other talking and responding. First question is, we'll start with Emily. Please describe your role, background, and the role in which the students you have hired is employed. Actually, for you, are employed.
I do have students currently employed with me, and they're doing a wonderful job. So we're very happy to have them as part of our team. My role as the general manager is I'm responsible for all hiring practices and every bit of operations of the hotel for every department. So I have the ultimate say in final hiring decisions. Once my department managers have started the interview process, I then do kind of that final interview and other role. I mean, I'm called the Jackie of all trades at my hotel because in a select service hotel, we kind of put our hands everywhere. And so some days I'm in maintenance and some days I'm helping in housekeeping and other days I'm doing the normal operations and office work. So.
And the students that you've hired, what kind of role are they in?
Yeah, so I have two students right now that I hired through this program, and they do what we call houseman duties. So it's generally janitorial type work that they complete for us on a daily basis.
Dr. Jason Kirk, tell us about your role and your background and the students that you've hired.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am the very proud principal of Hector Cafferata Elementary School in Cape Coral, Florida. And I, kind of like Emily, oversee sort of the day-to-day operations, hiring, budgeting, everything at the school. And the student that we have working for us right now actually works in our cafeteria as a food service employee. And he has a variety of roles that he does every day, from food prep to cleaning to serving our students. We have about 610 students on campus right now, and we serve them breakfast and lunch every day. So he is one of 5 food service workers that work in our cafe.
Thank you. And Debbie, tell us your role and how you've gone about hiring students or people with intellectual disabilities.
Thank you. So my name is Debbie. I'm a supervisor of retail staffing here at Publix. I actually supervise a team of 5 specialists over the entire state of Florida. So we cover around 900 stores in our footprint. So we do anything from advising our store managers and teams to how to hire people, and then also work with our school systems on setting their students up for success to become desirable employees, if you will, for Publix. So our goal is to really reach out and begin this partnership to learn more about your students and get them to come work for Publix.
Great. So Debbie, tell us what soft skills you look for when interviewing a potential employee.
So some of the main things that we look for are teamwork, good work ethic, communication, and it's really important to know that we actually don't require a lot of skills. We can train anyone to do just about anything. We really look for a great personality and someone that we can help mold and adapt to meet our customers' needs, but to also meet them where they're at, so that way then we can build them up to being an associate at Publix.
How do you observe that? I know any one of you guys can answer this, because soft skills are so important for students, but how do you observe that in the interview?
I guess the best way to describe that really is that when we're talking with them, we do like to see if they can make eye contact with us, which we know at times can be a challenge. But we really try to get to know them and understand like what excites you, what's your passion, what are you involved in, and then how can we maybe bridge that gap and bring that to something that could help Publix, if you will. If maybe they like to play games with their friends or interact well with others, we can translate that to being friendly with customers. So we kind of look at what they can bring into the interview as far as um, if it's their first interview, a lot of our students or candidates, they can be nervous, they can be shy, and we just ask them questions about themselves. Tell me, what's your favorite thing to do at school? What's your favorite subject? What do you do after school? What's your passion? And then from there, we kind of build that conversation to see where we could potentially fit them in. And then, unfortunately, sometimes it may not be a good fit, but we always look to see if we can meet them where they're at to see if they have those skills that can come in to be great at Publix.
Yeah, and I would add that I think we also look for somebody who's adaptable, has that sort of positive attitude because, like Debbie, we feel like we're in the education world, so we can teach you those other skills, but those soft skills are a little bit harder. And so when we're interviewing, we use a lot of sort of situational questions or tell me about a time or what would you do if this happened? And that gives us kind of insight into how they would react in certain situations, and how they would interact with other employees and with our students. And really, at the end of the day, elementary school, it's all about, do we think you like kids? Because you're going to be surrounded by a lot of them. So that one's pretty easy.
Yeah, yeah. Emily?
Yeah, I was going to say we kind of are a blend of what both Debbie and Jason said. We can teach a lot of the skills, and I know the program here locally really works well with them coming into the workplace and seeing the type of tasks that we're going to potentially have them do, and then be able to train them, in the classroom to really develop those skills further. But we continue that development at the hotel. So some of my students being on the spectrum, it has been very difficult for them to make eye contact and to even converse with guests of the hotel. And in hospitality, being friendly is incredibly important for everyone. So that's something that we've really been able to help them develop in their own skill set, is the ability to greet a guest or to be the first person saying good morning when someone comes in versus being reactionary. So for me, when I'm doing the interview, I know eye contact can be very difficult for some individuals. So that isn't as important as when they are interacting, what is their affect? Are they grumpy and do they just not want to be bothered? We've had to work with someone on a little bit of that. So it's, how are those interactions going? And, I don't expect it to be fluid and easy for everyone, but knowing that they want to try and that they want to learn some of those skills and that they're willing, and really, for me, it's, do they want to be there? I don't want it to be that they're just interviewing because they need a job or they are told, oh, I should try and get a job. But I want it to be that they want to be there and that it's something that they'll feel that they benefit from.
Great. So really and truly, you're eyeing the student for their character and if they really have a passion for the industry in which they're applying for. So I'm just going to ask the questions and you guys can just answer as you see fit instead of calling them. So what do you see as the most valuable skills that students can take away from their FPCTP or their post-secondary education program?
I think for us, one of the most exciting things about the student that we currently have is that he went through a food service program, at the post-secondary institution. And so I think that gave him a lot of confidence because he'd worked with equipment that is similar to the equipment that we have in the kitchen in our cafeteria. Has had some of those hands-on kind of experiences, which I think is great for our employees that have disabilities. And, I think that translated very well, to his current role as a food service worker at our school. So, that really, I think, is the most valuable thing out of that post-secondary is actually having that hands-on learning and not just talking about in theory. They've practiced it, they've done it, and that's provided, I think, him the confidence to be successful in his current placement.
Great. Great. So that hands-on training is important.
Yeah, the hands-on training has been very beneficial because what we've found is when we're working with them and training, them being able to take back some of the feedback that we're giving them and ability to kind of do some of that role play of, well, when I'm at work, they're having me put, for example, a wet floor sign out. We've had to work with placement of that and remembering that it can't be 30 feet away. It's got to be right where you're mopping. And so that hands-on just reinforces what they're learning on the job site. But coming in with already having some of that, even, basic knowledge and information has really been beneficial because they understand, they may not be perfect at mopping a floor, but they understand how it works and, how they should be, washing windows or different things like that. The hands-on has been very important, very beneficial.
Anything else?
No, we haven't employed anyone yet, so I'm just looking forward to seeing what skills they can bring to us when we are able to.
Okay. So I'm going to throw a new question at you. What do you suggest we say, or the program say, to convince businesses who are hesitant to hire individuals with intellectual disabilities, or to even give them a chance to be in a mentorship or a job training program?
For me, I would say we as the employer gain probably as much, if not more, than the students do. Truly. I mean, it has been eye-opening for a lot of us. It's been really, really interesting to see how our team has embraced the individuals and kind of included them in the fold of our everyday. And it's opened up additional conversation, which I think has been really, really beneficial, both for the individuals that are working with us, and then for them, more empathy and understanding. I've had a lot of questions about, what is autism and why is it different with these two individuals? And so it's really led to a greater conversation and a lot better understanding, which I think in general, it makes us better humans in that regard. So I would truly say that for any employer that is looking at potentially, working with these programs and then bringing these students in as employees, the benefits go both ways, truly. As the employer, we gain quite a bit from working with these individuals.
And I think it's important as an employer to, have a diverse workforce. And, there are many people that have disabilities, whether they're physical, mental, intellectual. And, the more that you diversify your staff, I think the more well-rounded your organization becomes and your team becomes. And I agree with Emily, when you include, individuals with disabilities, it's not just about that individual that has that particular disability. It's about what the rest of the team or, their peers also get out of the experience because, many of us live and work with, near people or next to people with disabilities. And for me, as a principal at an elementary school level, we have students with disabilities right on campus. So I think it's also important for not only our students, but our teachers to see that the work that we're doing as an elementary school creating, because it's not just about the academics, it's also about those social skills and some of those soft skills that we were talking about before. We're prepping our students for their futures. And I think that should be all students. So that's, I think an important message that shows, by hiring somebody with a disability.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Emily and Jason more. We at Public Student, we pride ourselves on being a diverse workforce as well. And I've been with Publix now for over 23 years. And some of my best associates when I was a manager in retail were those of different abilities. I remember one young lady, I challenge anyone to know where anything was in the store better than her. because she just knew it like the back of her hand. And, it taught a lot of our associates and customers to treat everyone with dignity and respect and to meet them on their level, if you will. And I really challenge different employers to think outside of the box and realize that everyone has something different that they can bring to the table, that all they have to do is try and work maybe a little harder some cases, but some cases not at all, right? You just have to provide that empathy and work with these students, and they are going to be a great success for you and your organization.
Great.
I,
So, go ahead.
I was just going to add that I think the other thing is that sometimes as employers, we get stuck in job responsibilities or what a role is supposed to look like. And, we have really kind of changed our philosophy a little bit into thinking about, we all have skills that we're great at, and we have things, some weaknesses that we have. And so, trying to get that team that kind of plays off of each other's strengths and weaknesses. And so, really looking at those job roles and responsibilities and maybe modifying them a little bit is pretty easy to do. If you got the person that knows where everything is in the store, I mean, that would be very helpful for me, So, I mean, I've been shopping in the same Publix for 25 years and I still don't know where everything is. So, I think just, embracing those skills that the individuals have and then highlighting those and is really important and helps them with confidence. And it also shows the rest of the team that, hey, we're all in this together. And, maybe I'm not so good at this, but there's somebody on my team that is good at this. And so, we can work together. And ultimately that makes a better organization.
Mm-hmm. So as if we're cold calling, as I'm a program or a college program, and I'm cold calling to a business, what would I say to you as a new business who's never hired a student before? What could I say to you to get you convinced or to consider hiring one of the students with intellectual disabilities?
I think a lot of times it's just advising them of who you are. Like when we work with organizations such as yourselves, we typically will reach out to so I'm not a specific hiring manager. I get the information over to our hiring managers and I let them know, hey, listen, we're working with this new partnership organization. This is a new student or a new client that they have that would love to work for Publix. Please consider them for your immediate opportunities. And if you interview them and it works out, let us know. If it doesn't, let us know, right? We want to know and we want to be able to provide you real-time feedback. And we do that often when it happens, if it was a good fit or if it wasn't, so that way then you're able to then maybe work with your student or your client and let them know exactly, what went wrong or what went well. So that way then we can continue to foster this relationship and build it even stronger.
Great.
I would say too, it would be important to not just mention, what the organization is or the school or whatnot, but speak of the trainings that you all do with these students that get them ready for workplace employment. I will say my two students that work for me are my most timeliness. I mean, their punctuality and just their time management is phenomenal. I mean, and I joke with the rest of my team sometimes because their names are Connor and Caitlin. And when they come in and we've got morning huddle, it is, 8:58 and they are in their chairs ready to start the day and ready to be part of the team. And I get stragglers coming in that have been with us for a year that, it's 9:04 and they're strolling through. And so truly, if time management is a concern or something that you really consider to be, very important, these students have time management down. and that's, that can be very beneficial for employers.
And, I think just again, kind of going back to the skill set, highlighting the skills that they have, I agree, highlighting the training that the individual has received. Because that's what when you're going to an interview, that's what you're trying to do anyways. You're trying to sell yourself, right? So you're going to point out all the great things about yourself. And, whether you're a student with a disability or a student without a disability, it's the same sort of goal. And I think as a program who are helping individuals get hired and find job opportunities, it's important that, those conversations I've had beforehand about, make sure you focus on this. Don't forget, to remind them that you have done that. In our case, the employee that we have, was Serve Safe certified. I mean, many of our cafeteria workers don't come to Lee County with that certification. So, it's something that you want to highlight and show.
To highlight our strengths of the program, but also highlight the student skills and the training that they've gone through. So that's a great point. All right, so I'm going to just let you guys know, in the meeting chat, you can go ahead and type your questions in if you have a question for the panel. I'm going to continue asking the questions that we have created here. How did the FPCTP make a connection with you regarding your students that you've hired?
For us, it was actually kind of a cold call. We have a unique situation that we're right next door to a post-secondary institution, and so we have a relationship with some of the employees there, and the leadership there, and so I believe it was their advisor reached out directly to me because they saw that we had a job that was advertised, and just asked if we would consider interviewing. I said absolutely. So. That's kind of how that conversation started for us, and it's been a great partnership.
Great.
So for me, my hotel participated in a program called World of Works. And so this was last fall, and that was a really interesting program. What essentially it does is it brings businesses from all sorts of different industries into one area. And in this case, it was on campus at what is now Tallahassee State College, and also has Lively Technical College there. And we had different booths for all of the different types of jobs and careers. And it was actually a very interesting program. And so just as being part of the booth, Grace Hawley, who is one of the instructors locally, came by with a student and was talking to us about some different opportunities. And then that just kind of got the ball rolling. After that, we had some interviews, and they brought their like interview cards as one of their accommodations, and it just kind of opened up the door for us with a lot of different options there.
Great, great. So those job fairs stand out really well too. Zachary Hubbard, do you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
I says higher both chicken and seafood, and says like portion a percent of garlic sauce, and do better of fish, and it's round, and I says higher, I got higher,
You got a higher?
and yeah, I just did like sweet meals in
That's fantastic.
2018, and I just did cream bowls around, birds and mac and cheese, the soup, and a salad bar, and
That's
I went to UCF about Robert Dixon career shop. I, I have a question for Debbie. Like, I want to work at Publix and Butter Ground. Like, I would do a bagger.
So you want to be a bagger at Publix?
Yes, at Butter Ground.
Okay. So the first thing you would need to do is apply if you haven't already. And once you apply, I actually ask, I don't know if it's okay. I could just drop my email in the chat, or I can just tell you my email, and then you could email me. Okay. Yeah, I'll drop my email in the chat. You can email me your full name, and then I can review your application. So that way then we can see if we can get a store manager to take a look at it for you.
All right, Debbie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go on. Thank you, Zachary. What, if any, accommodations have you been asked to provide during an interview session? Sometimes, oh, go ahead.
I would say I don't know that I don't recall being asked to specifically provide any accommodations. I mean, we're in the field of education, and so we're always providing accommodations for students with disabilities anyways. And so, even for maybe an interviewee that we don't know if they have a disability or not. I think we're pretty accommodating. We provide our questions written down, so that they can see them instead of just making it all oral and verbal. Sometimes and maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but like on the job, we provide like visual schedules and checklists and things like that. And I think that that's an important thing to do as well. I always tell our teachers, well, I won't say how old I am, but when I go to a restaurant, I don't look for the word MEN for the restroom. I look for the little guy, and so even people without a disability tend to use visuals. You don't read the word stop on the stop sign when you're driving. You look at the shape of the sign. So I think those are little things that you can do that just make your place of employment, your organization more kind of universally designed, I guess is maybe a good word, so that it's accessible for all people.
The only accommodation I have been asked to provide was a quieter location so that instead of, being in the lobby where there's a lot of foot traffic and distraction, both visually and audibly, we were able to go into, an actual meeting space so that there was less distraction. I do also employ some associates that are deaf and also some refugees from various countries. So I have had to rely on several different interpreters for Arabic, Spanish, even Haitian Creole, which is a very unique one. Just making sure that as employees or employers, we're obviously needing to be open to incorporating any of those accommodations for the interview process. We want it to be so that the interviewee is as comfortable meeting with us because that's going to set them up for a successful interview. If they're nervous already and then don't feel like their accommodations are being addressed, that's just going to make it so that they're, not really as successful in the interview.
And I think that's an important point that Emily makes, that, when you're interviewing somebody, they're trying to get information about you as an employee, but you're obviously trying to get information about them as an employee. And you have to make sure the environment is comfortable and accommodating, so that you get all the information that you need to make a good hiring decision. And so that benefits you as an employer as well.
Absolutely. Most of the accommodations that I've worked with are for hearing impaired or maybe even visually impaired candidates. And then we get interpreters to come in, or we provide them if we need to get like magnifying glasses, or we even have for some of our current associates, we have larger computer screens that are like actually TV screen sizes that they use as their computers to just help them complete their job successfully.
So building on this idea of the students being nervous or apprehensive, and when they go into an interview, what advice would you give to a student when preparing for an interview?
I'd say just be yourself. I historically previously had been a horrible interviewer. I could tell you how to do the job at Publix, hands down. I could read you the entire rule and procedure guide, right? But then you asked me to talk about myself, and I would always just clam up. We actually have a little guide that we provide to our students now that, or any job candidate really, that talks about how to have a successful interview. And it really just gives advice as to you're just having a conversation with someone new about your life story, right? Tell them why, what you do, talk about yourself. And I know at times that's can be a very daunting task because sometimes we're not used to it, and especially with a stranger. But I always try to find common ground and really talk about something that you're passionate about. One of the things that I always would talk to new students or even some of my managers about to kind of break the ice with newer associates is, try to find something that they're passionate about. Mine is my dogs. And if somebody asks me about my dogs, we could go all day. So if you can do that in an interview with a candidate, try to find that common ground. And it may not even be work related, but to kind of set them at ease. So that way, then when you can kind of shift back to those questions, it just becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think being authentic is super important. And then also not being afraid to ask questions because we learn a lot about a candidate through the questions that you ask as well. So if there's things that you're curious about, that kind of gives us insight into, your thought processes and how your skills maybe match up with our needs.
And the only thing I would say, adding to that would be, you know, make sure that from the beginning you are advocating for yourself. As a potential employee, it's okay to say from the very beginning, I'm going to need some additional assistance, and that is what this looks like. I was prepared in advance, knowing that for the interview process, they were going to have pictographs to kind of help guide them through some of their own questions that they had. The school here locally did a really good job of preparing them for that so that they could kind of follow along and know that they didn't forget to ask something that was important to them. So, make it clear from the beginning and advocate for yourself and say, these are the things that I need, to be a successful employee and to be able to integrate, into the workplace.
What accommodations you talked a little bit about the accommodations you've given through the interview. So what about accommodations on the job site? How do you work with that? Obviously the child or the young person, not the child, has to be someone who's self-advocating. But what are some examples of accommodation?
So one of my associates has what she calls fidgets. During our morning huddle, it's very hard for her to stay focused and on task and to be able to pay attention to the message that we're giving each day. And so she has things that she keeps in her hand that she can either look at or just texturally feel. So that's something that we do. We have another one that feels very uncomfortable if she doesn't have some sort of hat or head covering. So that's not something we normally allow in the role. But for her, we just said, okay, if you're going to have this, have it be a solid color that matches your uniform. So simple things like that can really be all that they need is, a head covering, a hat, something in their hand that they can touch and helps them to kind of stay on task. A few other things that we've had to provide or have worked with them on making sure they were successful was taking pictures of, like, for example, the wet floor signs. This is where wet floor signs should go, and kind of putting pictures together for them to see so that until they really grasped it and had it down, in memory, they were able to refer to that picture. We put little sticky dots on a couple of places that were colorful so that they knew, okay, a yellow dot means this goes here. Color coding, like Jason said before, um, even without, any sort of disability, we often are just visual. And so without reading something, I don't read the label of the cleaning bottle. I know that the pink cleaning bottle, the solution that's pink, is what I use on, sinks. And so having those visuals and reminding them of that, it's really helpful because that's really how so many of us operate.
And I would jump in. I think that, you had asked the question earlier about what would be some sort of words of advice or we would tell potential employers. I think that through our hiring of persons with disabilities, it actually has made, some of these things translate to other employees as well, and so we've rethought how we organize things or how we schedule things, what we used for visuals in the workplace, just kind of adding on to what Emily said. And, I think when you open that up as a possibility, you really then do become a better employer and you'll get better employees who are more productive, because those visuals not only work for maybe a person who has an intellectual disability, but it also works for the person who's acquiring English as their second language. And so, they become more universal things that you just do, and it just makes it a better workplace for everybody.
Absolutely. Similarly to both Jason and Emily, there are a variety of different things that we've done. We have just in Florida over 900 stores, and throughout our footprint over 1,400 stores. So I don't know, there's something that we haven't faced at this point at Publix, but we definitely work with the candidates. I know that most recently, when in working with some students, we made sure that we talked about the color coding with some of the chemicals. That's something that until that student brought it up, I would have never even thought of it, because I just know that like this is the label, that is a label, and they're like they talked about the color coding as well. And then we do provide some programs at the schools where we go in and we do some soft skills, or we do some different training to students that want to come to work at Publix. So that way, then when they get in, we can provide them additional training. And sometimes we do repetitive trainings just so that way, then they make sure that they're constantly learning, because sometimes it may take them 2 or 3 times to be proficient at something, maybe 7 or 8. So we're always making sure that we're working with them, even with their job coach if needed, to accommodate them to make sure that they're successful.
Great. So you touched on this a little bit earlier, but can you expand a little bit on how the impact of having students participate from the post-secondary program has helped your other employees?
Well, I think, one of the things is, sort of they say you don't truly know how to do something, or you're not proficient at something until you've had to teach somebody else. And so our employees partnering with, employees with disabilities, I think, helping teach them the job and the role, whatever, just makes them better employees. And then I don't remember if it was Debbie or Emily talked about, the empathy and understanding. I think it just opens up everyone's mind to, just, I don't know, just being a good peer, and that's important. We don't have to work with people that look like us, talk like us, act like us, and the more diverse our workforce is, the better it is, I think, for everybody. And in my role as a principal of an elementary school, what a great way to model that to our students, so that they grow up to be productive citizens, and good neighbors, in our local community.
Yeah, I would say um, having those students kind of involved with our day to day has made it so that we're more cognizant of our interactions. I'm seeing people be a little bit softer in the way that they're giving direction, rather than, there's no barking orders. It's, hey, can you please do this? Or, showing someone, because sometimes verbally saying, hey, can you do this? And they're like, I'm not even sure where this goes, but walking them through the steps, showing them things. I mean, we've truly learned from these students just as much as they've learned from us, if not more. So it's been good in that it's helped us to kind of approach our interactions a little bit differently, to make sure that we're not always training everyone the exact same way. Even whether you have disabilities or not, everyone learns a little bit differently. Some people are much more hands-on. Some people want to see it 3 times and then try it themselves, etc. So for us, it's been good in that it's really helped us to kind of cater our trainings and our interactions to the individual, and really be able to kind of modify for each person. And it's even more personality based than it is ability based.
How do you promote an inclusive environment in the workplace?
For us, it's just, they're part of the team. So everybody that's working each day, we have huddle at 9 a.m. So including them and asking them, rather than just standing up there and the department manager is giving their spiel and you're off, it's, does anyone have any questions? And specifically asking those individuals, Connor, do you have anything to add? When they come in on Mondays, because they don't work on the weekend, how was your weekend? Did you do anything exciting? Did you get to see Nana? Because they get so excited when they get to see their grandparents. And, having those interactions and conversations, just like we do with everyone else, helps them get much more comfortable with that. And then they start asking us, well, what did you do this weekend? And so it's fun to be able to kind of build that rapport and really have them become part of the team that way.
Yeah, and I would add that, like like in any relationship, finding commonalities I think is important. And, just because a person has a disability doesn't mean they don't like to do the same things that you do on the weekend or outside of work. And so, if you can plan team activities, we do a thing at the beginning of every school year where we do kind of a big team building function, get together, social kind of thing. That really builds that camaraderie. And I think it helps show that there's more more things alike than there are different, and I think, that's really how you build your team, just like you would with any other employee. I mean, like Emily's saying, just make sure you include them, make sure that you're accommodating for whatever their needs are. And I think the other thing is, if you have, like we have a cafe manager that kind of runs the kitchen. I've worked with her kind of directly also to help build the team with, her, because, ultimately she runs the minute to minute. And it's important that she's on the same page that I'm on.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just being involved, keeping them included in everything. Don't exclude them from anything. When we have associate celebrations, everyone's involved, everyone's welcome. When we have department specific meetings, all the associates in that department are welcome. They're asked to come and then asked, open-ended questions. What else do you have questions on? How else can we help you? And our managers, we pride ourselves on being promoted from within. So they're constantly working with their associates to help train them and educate them to be their best self for themselves and Publix.
Right. That was another question that I was going to ask, is how do the students or anybody starting off in a position, how do they get the opportunity to move and advance into other areas?
So for us at Publix, it depends on the position. So we do have some positions that are what we call positions leading to management, where it requires about 6 months in a role beforehand. But in most cases, we look for your hard work, your determination, and then we ask that you speak with your department manager. And then in some cases, your store manager will be that decision maker, especially if it's going to go to a different department. But for a lot of cases, we have like front service clerks or baggers, if you will. They start off as a bagger. Maybe they're highly successful. They do a great job and they want to be able to become a stock clerk. Well, that's a completely different department. But if they've shown a lot of hard work and dedication and we have an opening in our stock department, we typically look at our internal associates first and we would find out like, hey, who do you have that wants to be a stock clerk? We have an opening coming up. And then we would look at the internal candidates based upon their current work ethic and their availability and see if it's going to be a good fit. Sometimes we try it out, allow them to kind of work in that role for a couple of weeks or cross train them. And then ultimately, if they are successful, sometimes there's some paperwork involved. But a lot of times we're able to make that jump to get them to that next level, whether it can, in some cases, include a pay increase, but it requires like additional responsibilities and just more job skills and more ownership, if you will.
For us, we do a lot of cross training just generally. You never know in a hotel when, if someone calls out or something is needed. I need people to be able to jump in and, if there's a need, whether it's coffee needing to be replenished or there's a spill on the floor, someone needs to know how to do that. So cross training is really big. I would say generally speaking in hospitality, whether it's food service or, working, more specifically with hotel type work, in terms of, growth, same as what Debbie said, we always look at our internal associates and see who has expressed an interest. Some people think that they want to learn how to do breakfast and then they try it and they realize that that is not for them and, and they go back to what they're doing. But always just giving them the opportunity to try and expand what their skills are, and if they get tired of something or you see that maybe they're starting to look a little bit bored or they're becoming a little complacent in their work, it's having that conversation and finding out, hey, you're really getting efficient at this and it's taking you less time to do this. Let me show you another skill and let me add something on to your tasks so that they're learning more and it's benefiting us as well. And then, having that communication, finding out more about them and just maintaining that observation of how they're doing and You know, if they're interested in something else, you got to give them a chance, just like anyone, you know, you just got to give them a chance.
So,
Well, and I imagine, you know, like with Publix and hotels, there's hotels everywhere. There's Publix
yeah,
all over the state. So, you know, and if they're moving too, you know, if that's something as well. Like if you're moving to another location, there's opportunities for other growth and other career paths within that organization.
yeah, there's I thousands of hotels and grocery stores. Yeah. So thinking about the students that you hired, you know, what has surprised you? What's been a pleasant surprise?
Surprised me. I'm trying to think. Um, Gosh, that's a hard one. I would say not necessarily surprised, but I have been most proud in seeing their development and how proud they are of themselves when they recognize that development. You know, one of my associates had the hardest time greeting people. I mean, it was very difficult for him to actually, you know, say hello. And he would always respond very pleasantly. I mean, we absolutely adore these associates. So he would always respond, but being the person that would greet you first and then expanding upon that and greeting our guests and not being uncomfortable to be in an elevator with our guests. For me, I think it surprised me how quickly they started incorporating that. When we gave little suggestions and feedback, they took that to heart very quickly and very earnestly made those efforts from the very first day that we said it. You know, one of them we had to say, no, it's okay. We don't expect you to do this tomorrow. And so, you know, getting them to realize like it's okay for it to take time. And, you know, we don't consider that a fault in any way. So for me, it has been not necessarily surprising, but very rewarding to see that they are also proud of themselves in how they're growing.
I think for me, probably the thing that was most surprising to me is how quickly our employee kind of assimilated into the team. You know, because we had a conversation prior to him coming on board that and that he was nervous and he was worried about all these things. I'm like, you're gonna be fine. And that happened super quick. And so I think that was great experience not only for the employees that were already here but for him, because that also gave him a lot of confidence. And that it's rewarding and surprising at the same time.
Does our audience have any other questions? You can type them in the chat, or you can open your mic and you can ask the question.
I do see one question in there about UDL, Universal Design for Learning, and that's something that we use in the field of education quite a bit. And so, it translates pretty easily to our employees as well. So, we utilize, like we said earlier, a lot of visuals and things like that, schedules, timers, things like that. And that really seems to help our employees and our students.
Yeah. Yes, I think every one of you touched on that with the different accommodations that you offer for the employees. Any other questions?
And I would just add the more, and I'm not sure if Emily and Debbie have seen this, but the more that you kind of do that, I think as an employer, the less different it is, I guess. So if you have somebody else that you're looking to hire or to be a part of your team, you don't have to change anything because you're already doing it, And so that's how we approach in our classrooms for our elementary school students. And when we do that for our employers or our employees, I mean, obviously it's super beneficial.
Would you hire more students?
And I will say Jason mentioned, you know, timers and whatnot, and he's absolutely right. By incorporating those for these individuals because of, you know, their own need for it, I have found usefulness for some of these tools for some of my other associates that, you know, don't have disability, but that it's been beneficial for them in their own time management or in just in their processes. You can tell someone we do this step first and then this step second, but having some of those visuals and being able to kind of refer back to them has actually been very, very beneficial for other employees as well.
Great. Thank you. So tell me again, would you hire another student? or more students?
100%.
Absolutely.
Please send us students to hire.
We will. So, Emily, I'm going to ask Jason, you're very specific for a school, but Emily and Debbie, you're both with larger corporations in the big scheme of things. How would you want the students to approach, or the programs approach getting students hired at a corporation similar to yours or yours?
So I guess usually it depends on the area, really, I guess. But most of the time, we recommend that the program sponsor just reach out to myself or one of my associates. So that way, then we can kind of work through and look at what their client brings to the table, if you will, their student. And then we review the application and kind of give it a pre-screen and say, like, hey, this availability is great for this area, or you know what, this availability is not going to maybe get an interview based upon what we know this store needs. And then they can always just go right to the store. But we always recommend, if possible, to reach out to us first. So that way, then we can review all the information ahead of time and then send the information over to the store team, letting them know that, hey, this is an organization that we're currently working with to try to employ some of their students. Please review their application for your immediate needs and follow up and let us know how we can additionally assist you with staffing your store with students like this.
For me, I work for a larger organization, not just being a Marriott hotel, but I actually work for Aimbridge Hospitality, which is the largest third-party hotel management company. So headquartered in Texas, we've got over 1,400 hotels throughout the country and also Latin America and European Union. And so for us, it would be, specifically looking at Florida, we have few hundred hotels, I believe, in Florida. And so going to that individual hotel that might be closest to you, that's part of the Aimbridge family, would work in that regard. Each hotel has its own unique needs because full service has very different needs than a select service hotel. Those with restaurants and other components, bars and bistros and other things, they all have their own needs. So I would say, looking at what those job opportunities are that are available and reaching out to that individual hotel. But then, if someone wanted to be able to reach out to, Aimbridge as a larger company for Florida, we do have just different regional recruiting managers that kind of handle some of those processes in some of our different areas, like, Orlando and the larger metropolitan areas.
Jason, do you want to add anything about being hired for a school
Yeah,
district?
the school district of Lee County kind of has a little bit of a central hiring process. So all job opportunities are posted kind of on the school district's website, but then you can see the specific location, whether it's an elementary, middle, high school, district office. The neat thing about a school district is, we have custodial, we have maintenance, we have construction, we have educators, we have paraeducators, we have food service, an intermail system, communications, computers, technology. So there's a lot of different opportunities, I think, in the school system. So start at that main kind of Lee County webpage, look at what opportunities there are and try to match up your skill set with some of those opportunities. And then once you've applied, then reach out to that individual location and have those conversations with those hiring managers or principals of those schools.
And I think you brought up a really important part is the variety of jobs that you have in these locations, in your location. And as you were going through all those different things, I'm thinking in a grocery store, they've got the marketing, they've got the advertisement, they've got all these different departments, as well as the food management department. And then in the hotel, my goodness gracious, whenever we've ever toured the back side of a hotel, I'm always in awe of the web of jobs and opportunities for students with intellectual disabilities or for anybody to work in these industries. So, I like what you said, Emily, about looking at the different opportunities at the different locations. but also kind of getting to know that business and maybe doing like a secret shopper kind of thing and just scoping out what is this business about? Have you had have you had students or classes come and tour or do things like that at your business? Any of you?
So that's definitely something that we would be open to. We have had some students come through. Being in Tallahassee, we also have two universities right here. So, and of course, the renowned Dedman School of Hospitality. So we do have students that come through, and we'll sometimes do a shadow or for a day if they're thinking that they might be interested in a particular area of hospitality, because like with Jason, like with Debbie, I mean, even though it might be, a grocery store, a hotel, there's, a dozen plus different jobs and with very different tasks and ability needs for them. So, yeah, I mean, we're certainly open to having people come through and shadow and just kind of see what it's like. Doesn't ever hurt to see what you might be interested in. You never know. I was going to go into architecture and I ended up landing a front desk job years ago when I was in college and fell in love with hospitality. I thought I was going to be an architect, and here I am 20 plus years later, still doing hospitality, and I love it. So, I've grown. I mean, truly, I think with any of the career paths, if you're passionate about it and have that interest, you have the ability to grow. And I went from I've held just about every single position in hotels now at this point. So.
That's so exciting. So at Publix, we absolutely love to do tours. One of my favorite things is actually we participate with an organization over in Panama City, the ARC, and we have a lot of their culinary students which are students of different abilities that come in, and we do it probably once a quarter. And we go around and we do a store tour, and we even, because most of the time they're highlighting decorating, and we decorate cookie cakes and talk to the students, and they even get to take them home at the end of the day. And that may not be able to happen everywhere, but we absolutely bring them in, talk to them, have managers come out and show them different things and talk to them about their Publix history, talk to them about the different products that we sell, and walk them all throughout like our back rooms, through a lot of the associate areas to give them an experience of more than just a customer would get, to show them exactly what it would be like. In some cases, we even allow them to bag and cashier for a little bit to try that out on a register. So we can set that up pretty much anytime that anybody would like to be able to do that at some of our store locations. We just ask that you reach out to us so we can help coordinate.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other words of wisdom for our teams? We've got just a couple minutes left, and I truly appreciate everything you have said. I've gotten some great insight, and I'm sure that everybody at the meeting has. We have these. Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, I appreciate you guys being here. The evaluation is inside the meeting chat, and we will also send a copy of the recording and the evaluation again. Our next webinar is in November 5th, I believe is the date. It's the first Tuesday. And that webinar will be a parent panel to talk about what insights they have from their perspective of having a student that has finished a Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program. So thank you guys today for coming, and stay safe and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.